Hey everybody, this is Frankie Abbruzzino with an Uncensored Report, and I want to talk a little bit about Zika. This is something you probably heard me talk about on my radio show when I was doing that Friday show. I know we covered it, and there's different theories, and none of our theories, Bob, myself, and even Donnie in some manner, agreed with what the government was putting out. And now more and more people are starting to realize it. After the approval to release the GMO mosquitoes down here in Florida, in South Florida, after approving to send the vaccine companies tons of money, billions of dollars, you're still getting the media, propagandist, weaponized media that is selling the agenda of the government. And it's really concerning. You got them out there. We saw, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, we saw for months and months fear mongering going on about Zika, about the fears of it, stories that scared Americans half to death. Over in Miami, they were putting them up in quarters. They were spraying all these dangerous chemicals on them. The government wanted to funnel billions of dollars over to Zika. We had here our old Congressman Jolly go out with a Zika mosquito on Congress floor. All in the name of getting money to big pharma. And now many papers out there are admitting, like the Post, that they had no idea what they were talking about, that they were just pushing an agenda, just like they pushed agendas like when Bush wanted to go into Iraq with the chemical weapons, just like they pushed the agenda of Obama when he went into with the Ukraine and didn't tell anybody that we were financing that. Rather than admitting to their own science people that they are essentially, these science writers for these papers were propagandists. They were out there pushing a narrative for the government in the news. And I know the papers now, they blame, like they always do, they go around, they blame other people, other processes, other scientists for pushing out headlines. But think about it. The Zika. Yeah, I saw headlines out there. You don't see anything right now saying Zika hoax revealed. Wow, it doesn't cause brain damage. Do you realize that the Zika virus was penned, I think it was by Rockefeller back in, I can't remember the exact date, I think it was in the 1940s. This thing's been around forever, never causing this type of issue. My concern, and back when I was doing the radio show, was it part of the release of the GMOs? Because they released GMO modified mosquitoes down there. There's another one that is even more concerning that I'm going to cover here today. I think my cohort on the show, Bob, thought, no, it has something to do with the vaccine that they're giving the people at the time. So there's different theories out there. The problem is nobody looked into these different theories. Everybody focused on the fact that it was Zika without looking at anything else. And you got papers out there, the media, that just pushed the Zika hoax for months and months and months out there. Writing about that what the government has been saying to push out, the government propaganda, the pandemic lies that were being pushed out by the CDC. Yes, the CDC, folks. I'm not one that always believes the CDC is upfront and honest and what they say is what goes. Yes, I'm one of those anti-vaxxers. This epidemic has not produced a wave of fetal deformities that were feared. Where are they? Where are the images? We saw these images of misshapen infants that were emerging out of Brazil with the deformed heads. You just saw them on the screen. Scientists, they were bewildered. What's happening? It's apocalyptic. We're scared, causing athletes during the Olympics not wanting to go down there in case they were trying to get pregnant. Given a scare tactic, they did what they do with all scare tactics. They used the scare tactic to go ahead and increase the deep poisoning, spraying it everywhere. It's all hogwash now. Do you realize that DEET combines a carbamate class of pesticides which essentially causes neurological dysfunction in humans? And we were sitting there because of this scare tactic. You had neighborhoods in Miami allowing them to spray everywhere. Same here. I just saw an article come out locally in Sarasota. Well, we're spraying for the mosquitoes. Don't worry, it's not hazardous. How many times have you heard that from government officials? And then you go in and you find out it is hazardous. Because that individual is just passing down the same propaganda that his leaders ahead of him pushed out. And it's like, doesn't anybody go out there and read maybe something like from the natural news, or look at other options besides mainstream scientists? If they do, they would have found out that possibly, just possibly, Zika is a hoax, and that it's not causing the brain deformities. And there's some interesting information that I was looking at here too. You know, Zika has infected tens of millions of people throughout South America, for decades. And there's been no measurable increase in neurological deformities. But odd assembly, we have them. They're everywhere. We should be concerned, nation after nation. And despite the factual reality of the situation, you got the state-controlled propagandist, weaponized propagandist media pushing out these stories, scaring everybody half to death, pushing out kooky science stuff, and nothing happened. There was no explosion of shrinking heads. There was no wave of birth defects across Florida or anywhere else, Texas, anywhere. No national emergency was declared. None of this. One thing did happen is we were doused. Our streets have been doused with DDT and everything else. A scare tactic to poison us. If you look at some of the neurological rates, which I did, the birth defects in countries, Venezuela had over almost 61,000 cases of Zika. Guess how many birth defects? 0. Honduras, almost 32,000 Zika infections. 0 infections or birth defects. Puerto Rico, 29,000, just over 29,000 Zika infections. They had 2 birth defects. Mexico, 4,800 Zika infections, 0 birth defects. So possibly, just possibly, it's not the Zika. The majority of these brain defects, turns out, came just from this area of Brazil, where they released the GMO mosquitoes, and that's where I was wondering if it was that. They had something like over 2,000 children with neurological defects. Think about it. So what kids? Do these magical Zika mosquitoes carry maps and they know, hey, let's just go to Brazil and infect this small area, nowhere else? I mean, that's ridiculous. And that's the theory that essentially the mainstream media was pushing out there. If Zika really did cause brain defects out there, it would have spread across South America. You would have seen it everywhere. I mean, I just gave you the numbers and you're not seeing it. You would have seen it here in America, here in Florida, California, Texas, Louisiana. Yet the brain damage, the neurological defects are limited to Brazil. And that's, of course, because these mosquitoes carry maps. They know only to target that area, nowhere else. But there's not one single official scientist in the entire global government that thought about going out and doing something like, I don't know, testing the water? Testing for other options that could have led to this? Think about it. Do you seriously think that people only have... What happened is, one of the theories was that it was something to do with fornicating, and the thought was that it's only happening in Brazil and the way they're fornicating there. It had nothing to do with any of the other theories that were out there. But a lot of scientists out there are saying, look, all you had to do was analyze the water. Something isn't right here. The public water possibly in Brazil. Maybe it is a GMO release in Brazil. You could have taken a few days, a lot less money, and studied it there, instead of handing out $1.8 billion to, yes, you guessed it, vaccine companies, which Obama did without any delay. And not just Obama, the Republicans, Democrats all jumped on this scare bandwagon. You know, science be damned out there. The agenda was and is to push this Zika scare. All based upon a single shred of, no, not a single shred of real science out there. Zika's dangerous because they told you so. Hillary's honest because they told you so. Obamacare, you can keep your doctor. Think about it, folks. You can't believe everything the government is pushing down your throat. I suggest you put down the DEET. Stop poisoning your skin. Yes, the official science was totally rigged. Yes, the media is used as a propaganda piece, a weaponized propaganda piece. Yes, the CDC is a criminal racket. Yes, health officials are completely full of crap half the time, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're just pushing down what others told them to push down. Zika is not going to cause your babies to be born with shrunken heads. There's more danger in a vaccine where you're pumping your kids with mercury than with this Zika issue. And I was reading this one article, though, just to wrap it up. And a guy brought up an interesting fact about in the water. And he thinks it's a chemical, a Monsanto chemical called Lavimint, something like that. And he believes, I'm trying to look for it in an article that I was reading, and he believes maybe that has something to do with it. And that's what he wanted to go on test. And this was a scientist. My bottom line here is, folks, you can't believe everything that's being pushed out to you. You got to go out and do your research. You got to get away from mainstream media and check other outlets. Hopefully what I'm saying to you makes sense. How could it have possibly been Zika that's been around since the 40s and was panned by Rockefeller? Because Big Pharma and the government walk hand in hand, and they wanted to push more money towards Big Pharma. All right, folks, this has been Frankie with another Uncensored Report. What say you on this subject?